Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football, Texas, Oklahoma, SEC edition. Dill, one of my favorite college football games every single year. I think a fascinating matchup between one of, if not the most dynamic offense that we see in the country in Texas against one of the best defensive units that we see in the country with Oklahoma. Both of these teams coming off bye weeks. The chess game that we're going to see between Coach Sark and Brent Venables, I think it's going to be an all-timer. Really excited to get into this one now. Before we do, and as always, and I think most importantly, let it fly in the comments section, whether you're a Texas fan, Oklahoma fan, whether you agree with the boys, whether you disagree. That is the beauty of doing these preview prediction episodes. So let it fly in the comment section. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And Dill, without further ado, I think we got to start with this Texas offensive line going up against an Oklahoma pass rush that you take a look at the numbers, sacking the quarterback 11.4% of dropbacks. That's number 4 in the country. This Oklahoma front can get after you in so many different ways. Now they're going up against an offensive line that personally, after especially what I just saw on Saturday night, I think I'm taking Texas's offensive line over any single unit in the country. They've only allowed 9 quarterback hurries all season. Our Michigan Wolverines kind of just got shut out by Texas's offensive line. Dill, how do you see that matchup working out in the trenches here?
And it's not just the offensive line anymore, because last year, obviously, Texas had a really, really good offensive line. They still took a lot of sacks, and that was a lot more because Ewers, the athleticism, the presence, his ability to work the pocket, all those things feel like they've taken a big step up.
Oh, yeah.
His ability to avoid sacks, because Michigan got home, and it's not like they were dominating him up front. I don't want to make that implication, but Michigan got to him a couple of times, and his ability to extend plays and make essentially sacks turn into touchdowns really altered the flow of that game and allowed Texas to kind of
Yeah, Quinn Ewers' athleticism has taken massive strides, but I think even more importantly, like the pocket presence, the ability to manipulate a pocket, extend plays, and then push the ball down the field, that's what seems to be the biggest jump that Quinn Ewers has taken. And so you look at that matchup and say that starts with kind of what I'm looking at. I think secondly, in another really, I think, intriguing storyline that you're going to see, and kind of what we talked about with the Texas-Michigan game, is, hey, Oklahoma is going to be really aggressive, right? You take a look at their numbers, 2.6 turnovers forced per game. That's number 6 in the country. Zach Alley comes in. This Oklahoma defense feels different. It feels like the actual Brent Venables defense that we all expected in Norman. That being said, when you're that aggressive, sometimes you give up explosive plays. Oklahoma secondary is giving up 7.9 yards per pass attempt. That's 87th in the country. Oklahoma's done a lot right on the defensive side of the football. Giving up the explosive plays to that deeper third has been something they've struggled with.
Well, because what they've done is they've tried it very much, it feels like, to take the middle of the field away.
Yes.
You go to that last year's game versus Texas, Texas was killing up through the middle of the field. A lot of slants, a lot of crossers through the middle, and they were really just kind of marching on Oklahoma, it felt like at times. Oklahoma's obviously done a lot to take that away, but with that, they've left their corners out there on the boundary to kind of fend for themselves. And they've, for the most part, stood tall, but they certainly haven't seen a pass attack that of the likes of Texas, let's say. So that'll be kind of what I'm looking for. Again, I think Oklahoma did what they needed to do to take away that easy stuff Texas had access to last year. But with that, we'll see if Texas can really attack vertically down the field.
Yeah, and that's like the double arrow. Kind of what I'm looking at is the Texas explosive plays versus the Oklahoma aggressive brand of defense. Texas is really good at creating explosive plays in 2 different ways. One, they can push the ball down the field, right? Quinn Ewers, I think, has taken massive strides in terms of attacking the deeper third, being a little bit more accurate. I think more importantly, there's 2 different ways to create explosives. Yeah, you can throw the football down the field, but you can also get the football to your playmakers in space and let them operate after the catch. That continues to be what I'm most impressed with Coach Sark. You ask about why are his offenses always so dynamic. He's brilliant at getting his playmakers the football in space. 919 yards after the catch throughout the first 5 games of this football season. Dill, one thing I'm looking at is, look, Oklahoma has gone through some injuries in the secondary. They're playing some young cats on the boundary at times. If you're Texas, you are testing the communication and the chemistry, but I think most importantly, the physicality of these defensive backs. A lot of pre-snap motion. Test them in terms of, hey, how are you communicating and giving off concepts, and see if you can get the football to guys like Isaiah Bond in space, because we all know what Isaiah Bond can do when he does have the opportunity to operate after the catch.
And I think that's a good point. And obviously, the main position is that cheetah position for Oklahoma that I think we'll all be watching with Kendall Dolby going down, because when he was in the lineup, it felt a little different. I mean, his comfortability in that role, very versatile, tackles well, covers well, plays in zone well. Now they're going with the younger player in Sammy O. Can they make it happen from that spot? Because that feels like where Texas is going to try to come after them. And that's where I would come after them too, because you look, everywhere else is tough. I mean, they're good on the boundary. I think Connie Walker's emergence and playing the way he's been playing has really helped Oklahoma. And then the safety room itself is really good with Spears Jennings, Billy Bowman, some of those other guys. I kind of want to see if Texas can, again, use their tight ends, use their slot receivers. I think Darren Helms played really, really good for Texas, which has been a nice revelation in replacing JT Sanders, who I mean was obviously a huge part too. So that's probably the battle I think I'm most looking to see how Texas kind of targets it.
Yeah, Gunnar Helm's been an absolute dog. And we're talking so much about the passing attack because you look at this matchup and say, do you think – Texas can run the football. Do you think that's where they try to attack Oklahoma to the front seven? Probably not. Like Oklahoma, talk about Dominic Williams, Jean Terry, and then Danny Stutzman playing behind him. It's very hard to run the football against this Oklahoma front seven. And I think Texas will to maintain some of that balance, but I don't think that's primarily like when Coach Sark looks at, hey, how do I want to attack this Oklahoma defense? I don't think it's going to be, we got to attack between the tackles, because that is probably where Oklahoma is at its best. Now let's flip the side, and this is probably the biggest question mark and potential mismatch that we see in this football game, this Texas pass rush versus this Oklahoma offensive line. You look at Texas, Dill, there was a lot of chatter around Texas and their defensive line, potentially taking a step back with losing guys like Murphy and Tavondre Sweat. And have they maybe taken a small step back on the inside of the defensive line? Yeah, probably. It's hard to replace two guys that were two of the more dominant players that we saw in all of college football. That being said, the edge rusher position is so much better than it was last year. You look at where Oklahoma has been struggling. It's been at the offensive tackle spots. True freshman Colin Simmons, Barron Sorrell, Trey Moore. I look at this matchup and say, how confident are we that Oklahoma can block up this Texas pass rush? Because I'm sitting here and saying, from what I've seen from this Oklahoma offensive line, I ain't that confident early.
And frankly, that's where I think Oklahoma is going to have to get creative, because you're kind of right. I just don't see Oklahoma running, let's say, a normal offense, if you will. I just don't see how they can deal with this team up front. I mean, Texas, for whatever they might lack in the middle, which I think is a little underappreciated. I mean, guys like Boughton really emerging, playing really good football. I've been impressed with him. We obviously knew Collins was going to be a horse, and he's been playing really good too. So they still are tough in the middle. They're not like scrubs or anything. I just think, how do they deal with that defensive end rotation that Texas can throw at them? Michigan couldn't even come close to dealing with them. I mean, they're going to have to try to get creative with Michael Hawkins. That's, I think, why they brought him in. And do something like use more read option, more even speed option, those type of concepts to put these defensive ends in some conflict and slow them down.
Look, if you can't block them, read them. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I think Oklahoma has to be at. And if you can't block them, move the pocket as well. You talk about why Oklahoma went to the change. Jackson Arnold is a little bit more of a pocket passer. And when you don't have an offensive line that can pass protect and you're banged up at the wide receiver position, it just was really hard for Oklahoma to run that kind of offense. So you inject Michael Hawkins in there, hoping to slow down this Texas pass rush in kind of some different ways. Hey, if we're going to struggle to pass protect, let's go get a quarterback that, edge rushers have to respect in terms of extending plays and getting outside the pocket. That seems to be the avenue for Oklahoma to give Texas some
now that's where Anthony Hill gets really, really important. And I think what makes Texas a little dangerous for this Oklahoma team is that's where he kind of thrives. I mean, his ability to go sideline to sideline, not just but do it fast, do a physical tackle really well out there. He's a guy who I think is carbon or lab made, if you will, to deal with a Michael Hawkins type quarterback. So again, that is probably Texas' answer to what I imagine Oklahoma will be, a little bit more of a horizontal attack, probably a little less vertical. Maybe try to get to their shots, because they did do that against Auburn. A lot of the balls were kind of going to the sideline, and then when they got their shot, they hit them. Credit to Oklahoma. If they can do that and their defense plays really well, that's probably their avenue. I'm just sitting here right now, I'm not really sure what Oklahoma is
Yeah, you have to get creative, and I think that's a really good point with Anthony Hill. Like in terms of running chase backwards, what they're probably going to ask him to do, dealing with Michael Hawkins, I don't think he gets much better than that. Like, he's kind of like that Harold. I think he can do a lot of the things that like Harold Perkins would do when they were playing mobile quarterbacks down in LSU. Like, hey, like kind of like green dog spy the quarterback. When the quarterback looks to extend, you're going and grabbing the quarterback. And Anthony Hill's that caliber of athlete.
I
Looking
also
at the
think Texas's safeties are playing at a high, like Andrew
very
McCool
high
has
level.
been a big addition to this squad
Yes.
because he does a better job dealing with tight ends. That's obviously been something Oklahoma's had some success with in the past couple weeks, is going to Bauer Sharp and picking some big plays up with him. I thought Makuba in that safety group did a really good job on Colson Loveland from Michigan, frankly. So again, I think Texas defense is probably a little bit underrated in my eye, just because I think
Yeah,
they're running a
100%.
lot of talent.
Nobody talks about this Texas defense being like one of the better units, not only in the SEC, but in the country. This is a very, very complete Texas football team. Let's get to the pick here, Dill. 14.5 points, Texas favorites. Who you got here?
I don't know. I almost would guarantee that Texas wins this game, but when have we seen a Red River rivalry game not be like close? Because I've looked at some bad Texas teams go play a good Oklahoma team, play them really tight, and vice versa. I've seen some bad Oklahoma teams play good Texas teams really tight. So, I mean, I'm a little hesitant to take 14.5 points for Texas, but I do look at them and they feel like a much better team.
I'm gonna lay him. I sorry to cut you off. Like I'm that was my same exact thought process. Was 14.5 points seems a lot for this football game. But then when you look at the matchups, you kind of just trust your eyes in terms of what you've seen from both of these teams. It's really hard.
The eyes have been failing us. Like you look at the Tennessee Arc, like chaos in this world. So it's I'm not totally comfortable laying 14.5. I'd probably want it under 14. I mean, I don't really see how Oklahoma scores enough points, frankly, to win this football game. But who knows? They've had a couple weeks to prepare. Maybe they can come up with something a little spicy.
That's a really good point. Like having that bye week to really build your because there's significant changes that you need to make to your offense going from Jackson Arnold to Michael Hawkins. And so giving them that extra week to really install the offense and give Hawkins some more confidence running this offense, that's a really big storyline. I just you're right.
You need the guys at some point. I don't think Oklahoma's offensive line is quite in the world it needs to be to go compete with this type.
The eyes have failed the boys, but I think I'm going to trust the eyes again. You're on Oklahoma plus 14.5. You probably don't feel good about it.
No, I'm not on them. I'm not. I'm just saying. I'm just giving my reservation to take it. I still think I just don't see how Texas. I don't see how they give up that many points in Texas.
There's just a lot of matchups that favor Texas in this football game. And Dill, I mean, as of right now, Texas is the #1 team in the country. At least look at.
I'd say
we'll close it out there. One caveat is also like, do we know a ton about Texas? Because like Michigan, we're Michigan fans. I don't know how good Michigan is anymore. But again, Texas did come to Ann Arbor and just kind of blow the doors off of us. I'll go Texas. You sound like you're on Texas, but a little less confident. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let it fly in the comment section. We'll talk to y'all later.